Wow, these sources on Marie Curie are incredible. You've really outdone yourself this time. I'm ready to dive right in.
It's a fascinating story for sure.
Hmm.
So much more than just the textbook version.
Right. Everyone thinks they know her. 2 Nobel Prizes discovered radium. I bet some people even think she glowed in the dark.
Ah, yes, the glowing scientist. It's a popular image. But really, her story is so much more about resilience. Just incredible grit that fueled all her work.
Absolutely. And her early life. The sources you found painted a pretty tough picture. Losing her mom so young, money always being tight, and then on top of it all, trying to get an education as a woman in Poland under Russian rule. I can barely imagine facing even one of those hurdles.
It was a different time back then. Access to education for women was very limited, especially in the sciences. But even with those challenges, you see these flashes of her drive.
So it's almost like those challenges fueled her ambition even more.
Absolutely. Her father was a science teacher, and he instilled a real love of learning in her early on. And then there was the agreement she made with her sister Bronier. They were both determined to get an education, even if it meant sacrificing everything.
Mhm.
They agreed to take turns supporting each other's studies. Just incredible commitment.
Wow. That reminds me of those stories you hear about immigrants coming to America. They arrive with nothing but a dream, but they have that same fire, that same drive to build a better life no matter what.
And even when Marie finally made it to the Sorbonne, it wasn't smooth sailing. The sources mentioned that her appearance was, well, let's just say practical.
Sounds like she was a little more focused on scientific breakthroughs than the latest fashion trends, which I love. It makes you realize that even back then, those stereotypes were so strong. A woman in science, she couldn't possibly be worried about how she looks. It's almost funny when you think about the impact she was about to have.
Her dedication was truly something else. You might even say she was the embodiment of for science.
Totally. And this is where Pierre Curie enters the picture. And this wasn't just a love story. This was a scientific power couple. Their work together on radioactivity was revolutionary. I can't imagine everyone was happy about their discoveries, though.
That's right. I mean, today we see their work as groundbreaking, but at the time it was met with a lot of skepticism. Their findings challenged the basic understanding of what an element even was.
Wow. Talk about shaking things up. No wonder some scientists hesitated to accept their work.
And we can't forget the conditions they were working under. They were handling massive amounts of pitchblende.
For those of us who aren't chemists, what is pitchblende again?
It's a mineral, a uranium-rich mineral. It's the main source of elements like polonium and radium, and they were grinding it up, isolating elements with very little protection or understanding of how dangerous it really was.
Wait, they were just handling this incredibly dangerous material without the safety measures we take for granted today. That's kind of amazing and terrifying all at the same time.
The sources don't downplay the risks at all. They were very real. But so was their dedication to this work. They were determined to uncover the secrets of these new elements. And as we know, their work changed the world.
It really makes you think. If they were taking those kinds of risks, imagine what other discoveries could have happened sooner if they had even a fraction of the safety equipment we have today.
Right. It's fascinating. And their work on radioactivity, it wasn't all just theoretical either. It had some very real-world applications, especially when it came to medicine.
Oh, absolutely. So how was it used back then?
Well, one of the sources mentioned how radium revolutionized cancer treatment. Before radium, the options for treating cancer were incredibly limited.
That's tough to imagine.
But Curie's discoveries led to a whole new type of treatment, radiation therapy.
It's one thing to make a groundbreaking discovery, but it's a whole other thing to see it being used to potentially save lives.
It really speaks to the power of scientific curiosity. It's that drive to understand the world around us, even at the smallest level, that can have these incredible ripple effects.
And in 1903, that impact was recognized on a global scale. Marie Curie became the first woman to win a Nobel Prize. She shared the award in physics with Pierre and Henri Becquerel, for their work on radioactivity, of course.
It really was a monumental achievement. But even then, the sources point out, her gender continued to be a real barrier. There were actually people who questioned whether a woman was even capable of such groundbreaking work.
It's disheartening. But I guess it's not all that surprising when you consider when this was. Even at the highest levels, those biases against women in science were so deeply rooted.
It's true, but she persevered. And tragically, just a few years later, she lost Pierre. He died in 1906.
It's hard to imagine what she must have gone through, the grief of losing her husband and research partner. But she didn't let that stop her. She took over Pierre's professorship at the Sorbonne, became the first woman to ever hold that position, all while raising 2 young daughters.
It really is incredible to think about. She was a single mother, a pioneering scientist in a field completely dominated by men. It's no wonder she's still such an inspiration for so many scientists, even today.
And then just a few years later, in 1911, she won her second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, for her work in isolating pure radium. She's still the only person to have ever won Nobel Prizes in two different scientific fields.
It's a truly remarkable achievement, and one that really cemented her place in history. Her contributions to science are undeniable.
It really is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And then, as if her life wasn't remarkable enough, World War I breaks out. And Curie, she could have easily stayed in her lab, focused on her research, stayed safe.
Yes. But that wasn't her way at all.
No, she didn't. She recognized that there was this urgent need for medical advancements on the front lines. And true to form, she stepped up in a major way.
She really did. She designed these mobile X-ray units. They were nicknamed Little Curies. They were used to help locate shrapnel in wounded soldiers.
It's incredible. She saw a need and used her scientific knowledge to address it directly.
Oh,
That's incredible.
it's a side of her that often gets overlooked. She wasn't content just working away in her lab. It was about taking those discoveries and making a real difference in the world.
It really makes you think about the true meaning of leaving a legacy. It's not about awards or recognition. It's about having a positive impact on the world.
Couldn't agree more. And her impact was definitely profound, but unfortunately it was also bittersweet.
Bittersweet. You said it. We talk about Curie's dedication to her work, especially during the war. But we can't forget about the impact it had on her health.
That's right. I mean, the very thing that made her famous, the very thing that allowed her to make such a huge contribution to medicine radium, ended up being incredibly dangerous to her own health, too. The sources were very clear about how the long-term exposure to radiation really took its toll.
It really is a tragic irony. This brilliant scientist pushing the boundaries of science, impacted by the very element she helped to uncover.
It really makes you think about the risks that often come with scientific exploration, but it also shows just how dedicated Curie was to her work, even in the face of personal risk.
And even though her health was declining, she never really slowed down, did she? The Radium Institute, that was her idea, right?
Yeah, that's right. It was founded in 1914, the Radium Institute in Paris. It became a global center for research into radioactivity. It was a place where she could keep pushing scientific exploration and mentor the next generation of scientists, especially women in her field.
That's incredible. A true testament to her legacy. And it's amazing to think that the Institute is still up and running today. It's like this lasting reminder of her vision and her dedication to science.
It really shows that the pursuit of knowledge never really ends, and mentorship. It's so important. Just like she and her sister supported each other early on, Curie wanted to foster that same spirit of collaboration and support for future generations of scientists.
It's that spirit, that relentless curiosity that makes Marie Curie such an inspiration. She wasn't just a brilliant scientist, she was a pioneer for women in science, a dedicated mentor, and a humanitarian who used her knowledge to make a real difference.
Absolutely. It's a legacy that goes beyond awards and recognition. It's about breaking boundaries, challenging the status quo, and never giving up on the pursuit of knowledge and using it to improve the world around us.
It's something we can all learn from, right? It makes you think about what we could accomplish if we all embrace that same spirit, that same determination to make a difference. What do you think?
It's a great question. One we should all be asking ourselves: what boundaries can we push? What knowledge can we uncover? What kind of positive impact can we have on the world?
Marie Curie's life shows us what's possible when we combine brilliance with compassion and an unwavering commitment to a greater good. It's been amazing getting to explore her story with you today.
I agree. It's been a privilege to dive into her story. I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to learn more and to see how they can make their own mark on the world.
Me too. Until next time, everyone. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep pushing those boundaries. You never know what amazing things you might discover.